So let's dive into a really powerful and honestly pretty disruptive idea from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. In his work, The Gay Science, he makes this absolutely startling claim that what our society just labels madness, well, it once held a profound, even a necessary, dignity.
And this really is the central question for us today. What if our greatest leaps forward as a species? What if they actually depend on what we so easily dismiss as madness? It's a radical thought, for sure. And that's exactly where Nietzsche wants our heads to be.
Now, to really get what Nietzsche's talking about, we have to kind of travel back in time. We need to look at an age when madness was considered sacred, a time when folly wasn't a defect, but something, well, something divine. Okay, so this is the core concept right here, sacred folly. In the ancient world, if somebody acted, irrationally, they weren't just written off. Society often saw them as being touched by the gods, like they had a direct line to a higher truth that the rest of us just couldn't access. And Nietzsche's language here is just incredible. He pictured these individuals as a vessel, a container for truths that the rest of us, the so-called rational herd, were too shriveled, too small-minded to see for ourselves. So this sacred madness wasn't just for show. It had a crucial job to do. The fool could challenge a society's whole reason for being, literally shattering old stagnant laws. They were the guardians of creativity, the safety valve that kept the human spirit from being totally crushed by routine and duty. But then, everything shifted. We walked right into the age of common sense, and in doing so, we completely lost that ancient respect for the irrational. And this slide, wow, it really just lays out the huge trade-off we made. Folly went from being a sign of sacred dignity to a symptom of clinical insanity. The inspired vessel became the medicated patient. And the result? Well, we traded radical innovation for what Nietzsche saw as a deep, profound spiritual stagnation. Nietzsche doesn't pull any punches, does he? He says our obsession with predictable, plodding, scientific work has cost us something vital. We've traded the magic of that inspired, unpredictable individual for the boredom of someone who just follows the rules. Sure, life got safer, more common, but it also got a whole lot poorer, spiritually speaking. And this is absolutely the key takeaway. By domesticating the human spirit, taming it, suppressing everything that seems dangerous or irrational, we risk stamping out the very innovations that are necessary for us to evolve and survive. So, you might be wondering, how did any radical new idea ever manage to break through? Well, Nietzsche says they needed a disguise. They needed the prophet's mask of folly, which harnessed the raw theatrical power of madness itself. I mean, look at this. Nietzsche basically lays out a playbook. If you just presented a new reason or a logical argument, you'd be ignored. But if you wore the mask of folly, if you spoke with this prophetic fire and passion, you could command attention, maybe even fear. That performance was the only thing powerful enough to shatter the shackles of old morality.
This brings us right to the heart of Nietzsche's paradox, doesn't it? So much of what we now call wisdom actually started out looking a whole lot like madness. It seems progress has always depended on those who were brave enough to be seen as crazy by everyone else. But that raises a huge question. If folly is so important, why are we so terrified of it today? Let's dig into the psychology behind our modern distrust of anything that seems irrational. Just think about it for a second. When you're confronted with someone who breaks all the social rules, who doesn't conform, what's your gut reaction? For a lot of us, it's discomfort, it's dismissal, maybe even disgust. But why?
Nietzsche says it's basically a defense mechanism. We distrust the fool because it protects our fragile sense of control over the world. Because if we admit that madness might hold some higher truth, that means admitting the foundations of our own predictable lives, well, they might be a little shaky, maybe even arbitrary.
So is Nietzsche just telling us to throw reason out the window? No, not at all. His ultimate vision is something more complex, a kind of synthesis. It's a new kind of wisdom he calls gay science. And by gay, he means joyful, cheerful, and totally life-affirming. You see, the goal isn't just to be irrational. It's about finding a balance. It's about having a sharp, rigorous, intellectual conscience, but, and this is the important part, combining it with a generous, joyful, and creative folly that you see in an artist or a true creator. And this is his gay science. The highest form of wisdom isn't about achieving perfect sanity or fitting in with the crowd. No, it's about reaching this state of creative intensity. It's about knowing when to listen to and honor that foolish part of yourself, and then having the courage to step beyond the safety of the herd. And this leaves all of us with a final, very personal question. Nietzsche's basically inviting us to ask ourselves, where in my life, in my job, in my relationships, in my dreams, where have I silenced my own noble folly, just for the sake of being safe, predictable, and sane?